Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Coach's Corner. So let me tell you what we're going to talk about today and where it came from. So it occurs to me that what Scott, Mike, and I grew up with and took for granted, a lot of you don't have access to anymore. And by that, I mean, most of us started in a bullpen because there was no hybrid, there were no remote offices, everyone worked together. So for me, his name was Steve Lapointe. He was the top producer, the senior guy in the staff. And I was like a puppy because I followed him around, sat next to him, asked him dumb questions all day, and stole a lot of his phraseology. And there was just this osmosis that I got from him. And he taught me a lot, not because he saw himself as a mentor. A lot of times he just couldn't stand how bad I was. And he would simply say, don't ever say that again. And I would learn that was a stupid thing. And then sometimes it would be quite profound. And I would be trying to figure out how to close a deal. And he would just sigh and say, Danny, sometimes the best thing to do is nothing at all. And then I realized I don't have to find a solution all the time. Sometimes you just wait it out and good things happen. The point is, we had the advantage of being around people all the time. And a lot of you are working remote or hybrid, and you don't get this cultural osmosis of being around bullpen mates. Now, some of you do, but a lot of you don't. And I think it's harder and harder for someone to be new and to get up and running as fast as Mike and Scott and I did. So the topic today is things I wish I knew when I started, that hopefully if you guys hear it from us, will sort of be a replacement for not having that osmosis. Anyways, that's the idea. We're all going to throw in our own, and let's see what we get. So, guys, things you wish you knew when you started. What comes to mind?
You want to go first, Scott?
Yeah, you bet. I think the first thing I think of is knowing that the temperature of the water is warm once you jump in it. When you put your toe in it, it's freezing cold. Last night we're at the pool at our club. Our 13-year-old daughter's there with friends, and it's freezing. And I didn't get in the water, but she's in there playing and she's having fun. Once you're in the water, it's comfortable. What that means is face your fear. Fear dissipates. This is something I've told my kids, that as you walk towards fear, it's like a mist. It will go away. And so any hesitations that you have, gosh, I can't call that C-level executive. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Other people do every day. And to this day, 30 years in the business, Danny and Mike, I still feel phone fear.
Yeah.
And so I structure my day so that habits and rituals give me strength to overcome that. For example, I don't log on to an email when it's my calling time. I shut my email down. I open up my database and I make one call. And it's usually to a warm person. And I call those my jacuzzi calls. Call people that are warm first. So structure your day so that it gets you closer to that warm feeling. And then there's other habits and rituals and rhythms that I've created that I teach people how to get there. I feel ready to go. I feel ready to go, ready to make calls every day at 4:30 p.m. That's when I'm ready to go. The only problem is you got 30 minutes left. So that's the first thing I would say. I wish I knew earlier. Just jump in and it will be comfortable once you're in the water. So that's my first tip.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Mike?
I wish I knew you guys when I started. And that wealth of knowledge. I think I started buying your stuff, Danny, like my first year in the business when you started figuring out you wanted to be a trainer. Anyway, my big thing was in getting deposits and retainer can happen in any niche with any prospect.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's a limiting belief around, in my niche, they don't pay this. They won't pay a deposit. In my niche, they only pay this. In my niche, and then the part B of that is selling retainers is a process, not a pitch. You know, Scott, I know you and I have talked a lot about retainers, same mindset. It is a diagnostic pain process, that it is step by step. No one's just, when I do seminars in public and I go, when people buy a retainer, what do they buy? And people go, oh, they buy your time, they buy your expertise, they buy the amount of work you're going to have to do. I go, not really. They don't give a shit about how much time when they pay a retainer. What they've done is they've bought the search filled.
Yeah.
There's something you've done in your process, which we don't have time on this podcast, but there's something you've done in your process where you've taken them through, challenging them their question. And I forgot, I think it's the challenger sale. The person that understands your problem the best is then probably the most likely one to solve it, even before a presentation is made. So it's a thorough diagnostic process, then a thorough, okay, here's all the things we're going to do step by step to fill the search. Um, and from that standpoint, you know, I've never had somebody that consistently went after this that couldn't get a deposit in any niche. So that would be like, if I knew that going in.
Yeah. And I would add on to that, Mike. It's not on my list, but hearing you talk, I'm convinced that I wasted years being afraid of retainer. I was told in the beginning, you don't know enough. You gotta get a track record first, and you're gonna be exposed as being an amateur. And at the end of the day, it's just a pricing policy. And I absolutely could have sold it sooner. And I could have been in retainer faster. And I really think it's an important thing for you to bring up now, because I'm a big believer that whatever impact AI has, it will have last on the high level searches. It will be harder and harder for companies to justify low level, high volume searches as candidates get more comfortable talking to very sophisticated bots who talk in casual conversation like Gemini does. But companies are always going to think, for this high level critical search, I want a human, B, a recruiting agency working on it. I've been teaching retainer to rookies for years now because I wasted so much time thinking, oh, you're just not smart enough or sophisticated enough. If you set the bar high and just let a rookie go for it, it makes perfect sense to them that we should get paid up front before we do anything. It's actually the contingency part that makes no sense to the real person. Yeah, I love that. So the first one that came to my mind was, it I wish I understood earlier and had less guilt about how messy I was as a recruiter. Um, I was surrounded by these sharpshooters who, said, I only want to send excellent people because this is my reputation and I want to come across as an uber professional. And, you're high volume, sending too many candidates, you're embarrassing yourself. You want a short list of candidates. That was all wrong. I was making placements when I just said, you know what? I'm not playing God. When in doubt, send them out. I was placing engineers. I was an English major. I didn't really know these candidates were any good, but I could sell anybody anything. And the more candidates I sent, the more placements I made. I started to outbill all these sharpshooters. And here I am now, many years later, and I'm mentoring $1 million producers. And the people that are billing 300,000 have a 3-to-1 send out to placement ratio, and they're such experts. And the $1 million people are 8-to-1, 10-to-1, 12-to-1. They don't give a damn. It's like, look, you want to see candidates. I think companies now say, if I'm going to use a search firm, I want to see traffic. I want to see candidates. And I had so much guilt about it in the beginning. I was like, I'm this messy, sort of low class, doesn't really know what he's doing, throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall kind of guy. I'm making more money than everybody, but I guess I'm doing it wrong. No, you are not. It is a business for the messy. It is a scrappy business.
Yeah, my bet, just to tack onto that, Danny, my best year ever was, and I had people helping me with fulfillment, so I didn't do this all by myself, was 2,143,000 on my desk at a 7.25 interview to placement ratio.
There you go.
And people at conferences like, what do you want to do to bring that down? I go, nothing.
Yes.
It is so like, if it got down to 6.75, I was a little ahead of the numbers. If it got up to 8, I was going to catch up. It settled in within hundredths of a point to 7.25. I had no shame over that number.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Who's next?
Scott, you want to go?
Yeah, you bet. Second thing I wish I knew then is establish a vision of who you can become. And that's something probably about 4 years into it, I started to see the potential of this business. I joined a search firm in Asheville, North Carolina, where I don't know if I was fired or what, because they stopped paying me commissions and the owner stopped calling me back. So I didn't even know what this business was. And now I don't want to say anything else about that, but I didn't even know this business was an industry until after I started it. And literally a 1-bedroom apartment and a folding card table was my desk. That was about when AOL was starting up. I mean, that's how long ago it was. But one thing I did do was I saw myself as a big biller. I imagined myself on the top floor of a high rise, seeing myself as a peer with C-level executives and not talking up to them like, yes, sir, Mr. Smith. It's John, let me make a suggestion. Speaking to them as a peer, as an equal, and they love that. But I think most people don't have that vision for themselves. And I think when you see the potential that this business has, not just the income potential, but the significance that you have in other people's lives, when you move a highly paid professional from one organization to another, that's risky. That's a time at which they are most vulnerable professionally, and you're responsible for that. How are you going to treat that? Are you going to take care of it and shepherd that deal across the finish line so that everybody puts you on their holiday card list forever? Or is it just something that's just not that important to you? And I think a lot of this stems just in my own journey of self-esteem, self-image. And if you see yourself as someone that's just not worth it, other people are going to see that too. And I think the hope is that you get better and you grow by self-awareness, a quick trilogy of journaling, reading, and being self-aware, such as seeing a counselor or having close friends you can be vulnerable with, and allowing people to get close to you. And so I think, just to kind of summarize that, the vision of who you can become. And here's one hack. Find someone that bills a certain dollar amount, meet them at a conference, go to NAPS, meet them at NAPS, wherever, or Pinnacle. And then you tell yourself, if they can do it, I can do it. If one person can do something, so can somebody else. It doesn't matter who your daddy was, doesn't matter if you went to college or not. It's just, you're totally responsible. You know, the good news is you're completely responsible for everything that happens to you. The bad news is you're completely responsible for everything that happens to you. You can't make excuses. And when something bad happens, you have a choice in how you respond. But it starts with that vision of who you can become. So that's my second tip.
Yeah, and a corollary to that, Scott, too, and I don't know how you can, I guess it's just a question of, you said self-esteem and how you were raised. But the subtext, the meta message to me as a 22-year-old recruiter was, these C-level people are just, they are superhumans, and they don't have anything to do with you. And the idea of you calling them would be insane. What could you possibly say to these people? And it took me way too long to realize these are just people. And what I experienced, which is really kind of wonderful, I want everyone to hear this, is as I got more successful and met through speaking and through our business, some high-powered, some very even famous people, the kindest people I knew.
That's
They
right.
had nothing to prove. They already made it.
Yeah.
They want you to do well. They're happy to talk to you. This whole idea that they're all, these prickly Elon Musk characters, just not been my experience.
That's right.
They're
Yeah.
easy to talk to. Yeah.
They want to help younger people that are willing to do big things and serve others. They're willing to go out of their way to do that,
100%. Yeah. And they don't get many calls. That's the other thing. They're not the talent act person who's getting 20 of these a week. So when you do get one of these people on the phone, guess what? Everybody gets NPC calls all the time. To them, it's a shocking thing. It's like, oh, there's a candidate you called me about. Tell me about it. They're innately curious people. If I could do it over again, I'd be like, I'd only call them, and I'd stop calling the mid manager who's on a power trip because he's talking to a recruiter. Right? 100%. I agree with you. Yep. Perfect. Mike?
And I want to tag a little onto that. I used to call it the asshole factor. The bigger the asshole, the lower they were in the food chain of management. And so the higher the food chain, and there's a reason behind that. You don't get to a C-level executive, and not that they don't have egos, knowing that you got there through the help of other people.
Yeah.
And that you leveraged resources in the organization, and you were a great delegator, and you got things done, because no one can become a C-suite executive based on putting everything on their back.
Yeah.
And so they get there because and a recruiter is just a good recruiter for them is just another resource to help them advance their vision for what they want to get done. And that, so I can't agree more. And one resource along that for people listening along Scott's point is a book called The Happiness Advantage by a guy named Sean Achor, Achor. Um, Danny, you'll love him because the guy is freaking funny and brilliant. Like it's that combo of humor. And if you get a chance, he's got a TED talk. I think he's only got one, and it's almost a stand-up comedy act. But basically, the mind, and we've heard this from other people, the mind does not know the difference between the real and the imagined. If you can put yourself, imagining to Scott's point, yourself as a big biller, what does a big biller do? Would he or she be talking with? What would those conversations go like? And you just think about that for a little bit, and even to Scott's point, even journal about it a little bit. Your brain doesn't know that you didn't do it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Like if you do it once fleetingly in 30 seconds, you're not going to create an experience for the brain. And that's what some of the stuff he actually talks about. So he's not a woo speaker. He's actually like a PhD, and he teaches happiness. And I think he's at Duke now. I think he used to be at Harvard. Um, but my next point would be from an owner perspective. When my initial hires didn't make it, I thought I was constantly hiring the wrong people. Why can't I find someone who gets it? We hear that all the time from owners, right? And then what I realized, I was putting pretty good people into a really crappy onboarding system.
Mhm.
And those that got it, which I estimate when I went back through, I remember I did this 10 or 15 years ago. I looked at everyone I ever hired. I looked at the ones that made it. Um, and the ones that got it without any intervention on my part was about 1 in 20. So that is not a scalable metric.
Right. Yes.
So if I knew this again, 1990, 1991, when I started hiring people, I would say, okay, I need a strong onboarding system, accountability system to get them up and running quicker so they're successful and I don't have to fire them or they don't quit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We get so caught up in just, I got to make a placement and watch me, kid. But that's, yeah, that's not a serious structure. And, these people, we see it as risky to hire people because we're paying them, but it's such a risk on their part. They could be doing something else that they're more suited for. And that's tied to onboarding too. I also had to learn to let people go who I loved them, but I knew they couldn't do the job, and I kind of wanted them to be around. I just didn't want to pay them anymore. Yeah, you had to. So yeah, my next one would be similar to that, and I think it's probably inspired because, and I guess this is a sign that I'm getting old because I'm starting to get asked to be commencement speaker at these colleges, and you know, so uh, I keep looking at YouTube commencement speeches, and of course they're all saying, find your passion, and the money will come, and I'm going, that is absolutely not true. And I wish I knew earlier that because I spent, I know I'm sure you guys did too. I was having success early, but I was like, am I really passionate about this? Like everyone says you have to follow your passion. Am I passionate about it? And how do I measure that? And and it's just crap because the reality is, at 22, you don't have passion for anything. You have hormones raging, but you don't have passion. What happens is you've got to find something life needs done. And the better you get at it, the more passionate you become about it. And I think I'm as passionate now as I've ever been because I know so much more. And I wish somebody had told me that, if we look at it from an entrepreneurial point of view, that being a new recruiter is a startup, right? You're a startup. And when we think about startups, people in startups dream big. They're full of possibility. They're willing to work long hours. There's tons of coffee and Adderall, and they ignore the needs of their loved ones. And and they'll tell you 2 years later they never were more engaged, never were happier. And then somehow you become, instead of a startup, you become a merger recruiter, where you're talking about strategy and optimization and ROI and time management and balance and all this stuff that is just a rationalization for not doing what you used to do when you were truly a startup, right? And I wish somebody had just told me, look, just stay in startup mode, dude. Just stay in startup mode. Don't ever merge. Don't ever be acquired. Who you are in startup mode is who you are. And life's challenge is maintaining it. And if you're able to, guess what? You're passionate. You'll be passionate.
It's that ramp up period. Like when I would interview people, I would tell them, in the first 6 months, there's going to be days where you're going to wish your parents never met. Right?
Yeah.
No, it's rare that I meet somebody that was in flow,
Yeah.
in their first 30 days. It's like,
Yeah.
this is what I went to college for, to leave all these voicemails, to get all this
Right.
rejection. This is not, why I'm summa cum laude from XYZ University, versus, to your point, it's that evolution. And I think when you hit that sweet spot, and I think you can in startup mode, and then now I know what I'm doing. And I can be passionate in that negotiation phase with a prospect or a candidate. And then we've heard it all from candidates who think, their dog eat their homework excuses for not wanting to, oh, I can let you know about the offer a week from Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Right. And like, we've never heard that before. Right. And so it's in those areas when you get to be a real problem solver and in flow where the passionate comes, but you've got to break through that initial barrier of ignorance.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Scott, you seem to me as energized as you were when I first met you in Phoenix 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you feel as energized as you were? Do you still feel
I
passionate?
I do, and I think part of that is having lots of bumps, and
Yeah.
you grow from them.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, something bad happens, how do you interpret that? At this point in the chapter, it's really bad. Like the day I had 3 counteroffers go on one day years and years
Right.
ago. Was that bad or was it good? We'll keep turning the pages. Oh, I learned how to not have that happen again, which gave birth to my training business, and I was able to make a difference for people.
Yeah.
So I think it's just having a lens through which you look. uh, the Stockdale paradox, where you have to have a firm grasp on how dire your situation is, a firm grip on that, but also know you're going to be okay. So I think it's that lens through which you look determines how vibrant you feel, how enthusiastic you are. And I think just doing deals, I think activity solves every problem. When you are covered up with work and you focus on the core, which is being on the phone, talking with people, and you do a lot of that, you're a happier person because things happen, you know?
Yeah, it's one thing I can't prove it obviously because it's anecdotal, but in the mentoring and coaching I've done, it seems to me almost universal that the best recruiters have the shortest refractory period, right?
Yeah.
So if there are recruiters who, if they have something bad happen, 3 counter offers in one day, oh my God, you have to hide the sharp objects in the room and let this person have a week off, and then they need therapy, and they're going to come back and they haven't shaved and they can't let it go. And then I've had the superstars that work for me. They'll have something horrible happen. A person just lie to them flat out. Fallout happens. $58,000 coming off the board. They're furious, and then 2 hours later they're laughing, and the next day
Yeah.
they get
And I,
3 sendouts, and that is just an absolute gift. But it is a common denominator among not just the best recruiters, but the most successful people in the world.
and that's a metric. I call it time to recover. That's something I've taught people. Pay attention to your time to recover. I had a deal that didn't close first quarter, pre-close. Yes, I'll accept the offer. And last minute, sorry, there's just not a lot of momentum for his candidacy. 5 minutes, I'm good. And you can teach yourself that. And just like I said before, it's about habits, rituals, building muscle memory.
Yeah.
I started playing the guitar a month ago. I played it when I was a kid, so I'm taking lessons and I'm doing classical guitar, and I'm learning that, oh, it's easier now because I've been practicing every day for 30 minutes a day over the last 30 days, and you develop that muscle memory and you pay attention to that. The same thing with our recovery time. If you develop muscles on how to recover, it gets easier and easier and easier, and then it doesn't bother you. And then you're invincible, right?
Yeah. Until the next one. We're laid low again. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. Anything else? Any other things that come to mind that
So I had one more,
okay.
and I actually added a little after listening to you guys talk. Uh, your niche doesn't suck. is, is how I summarized it. Because Danny, and I know Scott, you probably don't mentor as many people as you used to, but in the last year, I get in these conversations, oh, maybe I need to look at a new niche. And, there are niches that are colder than others, and I'm not in denial about that. It is not an equilibrium, but that is true all the time. Great economies, hot economies, poor economies. And my first question, and if I used to believe this when I started, because I'd go to conferences and there's all these people hitting it out of the park. You know what? They were just doing stuff I wasn't doing, activity wise, right?
Yeah.
Not technique wise, activity wise. And so I had a conversation with a couple owners in the last week. And they're like, oh, my niche and oil and gas right now, energy is a little hit hard, right? Natural. And I go, well, how many new people are you talking to every week? He's like 2 or 3. I go, and you want to establish a new niche where you're stupid and ignorant, and maybe not stupid, but ignorant of the business issues, the connections, all those things. By the time you figure that out at 2 to 3 a week, your niche will be back.
Yeah.
Your niche will be back. So why don't we just talk to 5, 6, 7 a day? Not forever. Until you get enough good stuff. Don't take, because this was the other thing with, I wish I knew, don't work with the people that say, work with my crappy fee because we're up and coming. And if you work with us here at this low level, we're going to make you rich on the high end.
Mhm.
Never happened.
Yeah.
Never. I don't know if either one of you guys made a sacrifice like that and then became this
Sure.
beneficiary of this river of searches. Never happened.
Sure. No, 100%.
But
And I've got a
about
point.
one, that was what I said was activity solves 80%, and I'd probably go 90, but 90% of your issues. I would rather have a 17-year-old high school senior put his or her head down and talk to 7 or 8 hiring managers a day and not really know much about taking a search than a tenured recruiter in a cold market talking to 1 or 2 people a week.
Yeah. Yeah. It's understand. I have such empathy when someone who's 20 years in says my niche is dead, and I say, well, then let's get out of it and let's find a different one. And they fight me, as they'll fight and they'll say, but I know everybody. I have all these names. I know everybody in the niche. It's got to be valuable. And I've literally taken those people in my car to cemeteries, walked around and said, you can get the names of every single person here, but you're as likely to get a job order from them as you are from your current niche. So what are we going to do?
Yeah.
But I get it because you spent so much time getting to know those people and putting those people in your database and then making sure your database was maintained, and it seems valuable, and it's hard to accept that it is indeed not.
And here's a point. I've got like a third point that ties in with what you're saying, Mike, but you raised your hand. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, my main thing on that is to that test, Danny, is what is their marketing presentation to job order ratio? Are they
Right.
sitting there like in 2021 and 22 waiting for the fish to jump in the boat? Or now, Mike, I'm talking to 30 people a week and I'm getting a search every 2 weeks, 60 to 1. Right. Okay. Well, now we've got a valid
Yes,
market
right.
test. So
Right.
that was my main point. Scott, apologize.
Understood. Yeah.
Well, I kind of use my own desk as a template because if I can do it, other people can do it. Years ago, when management recruiters would bring me in, they'd bring me in because, man, if he can do it, anybody can do it. He's not going to wear a muscle shirt like Danny. He's kind of the normal guy. But anyways, I think the problem is that when people are in a niche, they're just like every other headhunter. And guess what? In 2021, it became overcrowded. And now everybody, and you're just like them. So the solution is to create thought leadership. Get quoted by reporters in your niche. Create content that draws people to you and substantiates your expertise. Mike, you mentioned the Challenger sale. The author of that book, Mac Dixon, his marketing person, reached out to me a month ago to have him on my podcast on client development for professional services firms now for his new book, The Activator Advantage. Then you become part of that inner circle. And then when you create content, and one thing, final tip, create a candidate flow pipeline. Person you talk to today that says no, you have a good rapport with, call them in a quarter, every quarter forever, minimum. And when you reach back out to those people, if you've given them content, Jerry, it was great meeting you. Here's an article I wrote on mental health within construction. Let's keep in touch, or something like that. Oh, they read that, or they heard whatever podcast you were interviewed on. They feel like you know you. Relationships are built on frequency of contact. The more they hear about you, the more they see you, hear your voice on an interview, they feel like they know you. This morning, sent an email to a candidate in Houston. We talked in December, have something that's interesting. And he said, "That's funny you should call because I was listening to your podcast yesterday. I'm not looking, but I'm happy to hear about that." And so you stack the deck in your favor through thought leadership. And having a real sophisticated plan that takes effort and time, it pays off. So those 10 calls that you make are now worth like 30 calls, but you only talk to 10 people because of the value of that rapport and trust you have with people. So that's the final tip. Thought
Well
leadership.
said. Well said.
We could talk for this for days.
Yeah, we could. But and I don't want people to get the wrong impression when you hear us saying, "Oh, then you remember this and we remember that." And now we think, "I wish I knew this." It's a long list. Does that mean we're like regretful? No. I think any human being who claims to not have any regrets, meaning they haven't made any bad choices, they're either not a very smart person or they never took any risks in life, right? So there's value to it. And look, the essence of everybody listening to this is gonna watch a TikTok or watch a movie or read a book or go to a play. The essence of art is a catharsis. The whole idea of going to a movie is that character goes through this arc of experience and I learn from it. So I don't have to jump off the building, get shot, get stabbed in Romeo and Juliet. You don't have to do that because you experience it through art. And the goal really here was just to say, if you're having any of these thoughts, hopefully there's some catharsis to hear that all of us on this podcast, and if we got every senior person we all know on this, they'd all have a million of these. That just shows you you're not alone, even though your current office structure may make you feel like you are. You're not alone. Other people have felt it. And if some of these tips will help you navigate and get to where we are sooner, that's why we do the podcast.
That's right.
Thank you guys. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
We'll do this again
Thanks,
soon.
guys. Great talk, guys. Always.